So we're going to go right on to the consent agenda. Do we have any comments, questions on the consent agenda?
Quick on item B. It is 55-foot lots for that section, right? I can't remember the whole thing. That's just a quick question. Other than that, I have no. I mean, that's,
Yeah, the single-family residential land use allows up to
yeah, but I mean,
55.
I know in agreements that we've had for different MUDs and PUDs and everything else, that was, so,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, sir.
That's a,
So then, any other questions? Can I move on? Can we get a motion?
motion to approve.
That's one. Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor of the motion on the table, please raise your hands. And the motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to letter A on the regular agenda, consideration and possible action to approve an extended stay permit located at 7023 Louisiana Street. Miss Jess? Or does anyone have any questions? Has everybody done their homework? Oh, do you
Give us a lowdown.
want to give us an overview, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit.
I've read the report. So I assume everybody's read the report. So if you want to give us an overview?
Yes, ma'am. So I guess depending on how long you've served on this commission, you may or may not have seen one of these or not. It's called an extended stay permit, and it's used for a recreational vehicle. And there's certain criteria that are attached to that. The criteria that is stated in our ordinance in section 4738 is that if the RV is going to be occupied as a single-family dwelling in excess of 6 months and is to be placed within the city limits of Manvel, that's one. Two, individuals that have selected a recreationally centered lifestyle and that chose a specific location for a traditional season, such as a sunbird or snowbird. Three, individuals who have selected interim lodging during temporary transfer to a new locality or while waiting construction of permanent housing. Four, an individual who frequently relocate for employment purposes. And five, individuals who have selected a camping unit as a housing alternative for extended periods due to extenuating circumstances such as an illness. So currently, our ordinance allows a recreational vehicle being used as a temporary home for 6 months. So anything beyond 6 months would require an extended stay permit based on this criteria. According to the applicant's letter that was submitted, this started with a code enforcement violation with a complaint of someone that was living in the RV. There have been different site visits. The first site visit from that complaint was back in February, and then there were follow-ups in March, and then follow-ups recently just to see where we are in this process once the application was filed. The owner has stated that it's not being used full-time for residents by their mother, but from the pictures that we've been able to obtain through code enforcement, the slides are out on the RV. There is a porch deck that's been built around it. It is hooked up to both sewer and water to the house. Obviously, electricity in there. So it was the determination that was made by code enforcement that someone was living there. The property owners do disagree with that. They, according to the letter, sounded as if they wanted to be able to have the slides out on the vehicle and keeping it hooked up to utilities as it was being stored. So it seems as though from the property owner's perspective and then staff's interpretation of what it appears to be going on the site, that someone is living there. So you can approve the extended stay permit based on that criteria. You have to give a certain amount of time of what that be extended for, whether that's 6 months or a year, however you want to do that. Like as I said, we don't permit people living in recreational vehicles in the city. It is against the zoning ordinance. So in single family residential, we don't allow it. We allow RV usage to be lived in or to stay in, as I guess residents would be in an RV park. So, and an RV park takes a specific use permit to approve that. An RV park is not any sort of permitted or specific use permit, even in our residential districts. So you'd have to, have a commercial district in order to do that. So what they're asking for with this extended stay permit, like I said, I've been here almost 4 years. I haven't seen this one. I don't know if anyone else that's served a little bit longer on planning and zoning has seen one of these. But this is definitely an application that we haven't seen, where we have a lot of other code enforcement cases in the city with a similar situation. And this would, allowing the extended stay permit for living purposes would be allowed on this residence, but not anywhere else in the city, I guess, unless this same application was filed. But typically through code enforcement, the RV is moved, or if it takes, longer than the 14-day, violation, there's a violation that's given, they'll work with code enforcement on when and how that can be moved. But we've never gotten one of these from the code enforcement. And so we've gotten to this point, for a while where it hasn't been 6 months since the initial, complaint. So if we start within February, then we've got 6 months from there that this application could become valid on top of that. So if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of those for you.
And who are you? Okay, so first we're gonna have the commission ask questions, but your time would have been, I guess, well, let's have the commission ask questions first. Does anybody have any questions on?
So this starts from a complaint. Somebody complained about it, and that's where it comes from?
Yes, it's stemmed from a complaint, but I will caveat that we have new code enforcement staff within the last probably 6 months, and it's really for the first time that we have proactive code enforcement, that things are picked up on just regular routine patrols from the city. But yes, we still do get complaint-based notifications.
Any other questions?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I did this with my mother's. And one thing that we were told flat out we couldn't do is septic. It had to be dumped, which means it had to be moved. I don't even know if that's in a federal law, because I know there's a lot of guidelines. Is there not? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. But I know when we did ours, of course, it's been a while, because we were building her house in the process. So,
And that is a caveat where someone's building a house and you're allowed to have that. The other interesting scenario is with the RV sharing a sewer system with the home. Well, let's use that RV as an example of it actually being a stick-built home. Well, those two stick-built homes could not share the same septic system. They'd have to be on separate lots. So each person would have to be on their separate lot with their own sewer system. So I don't know if that complicates things, but it's just sort of a clarification on that.
yeah. I mean, to me, this is set up permanent. If you had the stairs, you had the septic, but I don't know how the rest of the committee feels.
I'm just asking for questions. Your question is, what's your question?
None at that point.
I don't have a question.
Comment.
Anybody else have a question? 'Cause
Just my curiosity is, the word they use, extended stay for permits. So as you said, that city doesn't have something like this, right? As I said earlier, these types of
yeah,
definition.
they do. That's what this is.
No, it is. It's an extended safe permit. It comes from section 4738.
In this scenario, does not fit in there. I thought you went through those numbers earlier.
I see what you're saying based off of the criteria. That may be a point of clarification you might want to speak with the owners about, because the owners have stated that it's not being used as a single-family dwelling. But that is one of the criteria, and the other criteria is recreation. If you're a snowbird, housing, employment purposes, illness, or if you were, perhaps like constructing a new home. It was staff's determination through code enforcement that it is being used as a residence, but the property owners say that it's not. They've communicated to us that it's in that condition because that's how it's being stored, or that it's being maybe used. I think their mother is staying in the home 75% of the time, but spending 25% of her time in the RV. Is how it was explained in the letter to staff.
But the staff also find out that it is connected to the sewage, right, as you said earlier?
Yes, sir, to water and sewer.
Right. So it's basically it's kind of independent unit right now. You can use it for independently. You have
That was staff's determination.
electricity, everything. Okay.
So is code enforcement here?
Yes, ma'am, she's here. Miss Officer Danielle Bryan is here.
Okay. So can you, I don't know if we want to get into this. So you had something you wanted to add? Huh. No need. Seems obvious. Okay, we're not gonna get into what anybody else has or what anybody else does. You've been in here before, so. So we're not gonna get into what anybody else has, we're here for what you have. So thank you for your explanation. Anybody else have any questions? Just to be clear, Jess, what your, I guess I didn't read, I guess I didn't have my little,
So when you say when they filled out this form, they filled it out for a 6-month stay?
it's an extended stay permit.
But that's
I
what,
have
that's what
seen this
they
before.
submitted, right?
So every 6 months, they will come back in for a new one, is that correct?
At the end of 6 months, it would expire. So if they needed beyond 6 months, you'd have to come back to this board and then ask for another 6 months. And then, so now you've got like a total of a year plus. That's for the commission to decide on what's temporary, what's not temporary. We get a lot of, just through development, a lot of things that everyone will tell us it's temporary. And I said, well, define temporary, because we've got 6 months here, but if, you're in a year or more or whatever, I don't know if that's temporary anymore, but it may be your definition of temporary.
In my humble opinion. So what I'm trying to determine is, I don't see a recommendation here. And maybe it's because I didn't. Which one?
So the agenda data sheet has a recommendation. Staff wasn't recommending approval of it.
Where you weren't,
Was not recommending approval of it.
because it's not.
Evidence indicates it's being used as a permanent residence. Typically, when RVs are stored on site, you wouldn't have your utilities hooked up. You wouldn't have it hooked up to electricity. You'd probably even go so far as, with it being stored for any amount of time, taking out the batteries, and you'd want to drain it and empty it. The other thing is, the allowance of this is, code enforcement is going through the city and being proactive or on complaint basis for RVs, that anything that's beyond the 6 months or even getting into a year is allowing the RV to be used in a way that everyone else in the city is not allowed to use RVs. And we have a few examples of other people that are, have been through some tough situations that have moved that RV off of that, off of those properties. So again, there's the criteria for it, but based on those, that analysis, staff doesn't recommend extending it.
Comments, questions?
Just considering these types of scenarios, citizens' situation, how much effect going to have in future or even current other applications? Is it going to be we don't want to open a door or something, or doing something in approving something that's going to be saying, oh, shoot, everybody's going to put in our application. It was. Right. Because of the complaint, yeah. No, I'm saying actually, how much is going to affect? For example, we approve it. For example, we voted yes. How much is going to affect for the? I don't know much.
So let's
really.
be clear.
So maybe the city
Let me-
might know. Yeah,
So,
that's my question.
hold on. A couple of things just came up, and you can correct me when I'm wrong. This has been in effect, this ordinance has been in effect for quite a while. It's not like it's a new ordinance. It's just like there's been no one to enforce the ordinance. So, it's never come before the commission because there's been no way to enforce the regulation. Now there is. So I assume this was a complaint driven. So folks that don't want to live next to it are looking to get the enforcement that they feel is within their reach. Does that clear things up for that question? Bobby, I'll be happy if you want to jump in here anytime. You've been here just as long as I have. You do. You have been here too. You've heard this one before. It just hasn't been enforceable because there's been no one here to enforce it. Now it's becoming enforceable.
Well, it was enforceable a long time ago. Like I said, I
No
went,
one here to enforce it.
well, you did back then, but you don't have somebody adamant on it now more than what it was back then.
Exactly.
But-
So there was no, there
But
wasn't.
it was
as much-
there.
Right.
'Cause like I said, I even got drilled on my mother's for this because it was in my yard.
Okay, so, but that's what I'm saying. They're asking, you and I know. That is what's happening.
Yeah.
Does that make it more clear?
So is this the first time they've actually put in an application for a permit?
At this residence, yes.
Okay.
I can't speak to previously.
Right, but they put theirs in.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
is your first.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So I just wonder if maybe we should give them, I mean, should we give them the 6 months? Should we not give them the 6 months? As if they had filled it out? I mean, what do
So
y'all-
that would be the question on the table.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a 6 months extended
Or
pay?
do we do the 6 month based from whenever their first notification was? Is that what you were saying, Jessica?
There's I guess different ways you could look at it if you were wanting to grant it. It could be from the 6 days that the complaint occurred with the violation, which would be back from February. I don't know that gets the property owners very much from 6 months, or 6 months from the date that you would approve it here from there.
Or we just do it from now? That's the two options.
Seeing that it's the first one, I'm leaning in your direction.
Yeah, just give it to them.
Is there any option for the future, they may going to come back again after 6 months saying, okay, we look 6 months back again, so it's going to continue going?
Right, but everybody here will have seen that. We'll have, that's what I think you're alluding to.
See, for me, actually, I'm always favor of this type of scenarios, but the thing is, only thing I hated is we're going to open the door, and everybody's going to come to look for some this types of favor. That's the only things I really don't, but I really, yeah,
Okay, Dorothy,
it's
answer
been
me.
an option, right.
So
Okay, go ahead.
But
you want to
everybody
give
should get the
them
opportunity
6
to-
months from February? Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
No, 6 months from,
no, you're hearing Christy say that she wants to give him 6 months. That's
okay.
That's what you're hearing. And I'm hearing you're not wanting to.
Wow.
That's what I'm hearing.
I think it's more of a permanent setup because of you're adding,
But as
You
of
can
today,
call
you
it-
have 6 months.
and yeah, I can give you the 6 months from,
Look, if I had an RV in the same situation, that's
yeah,
probably.
yeah, I understand that too, so,
If
yeah.
you have the capability of doing that, keep it hooked up. I mean, you can use it for all kinds of things, just like they said. So, I mean, it is what it is. Is it a permanent residence? That's neat,
Oh, no.
yin yang. So,
I know, yeah, that's what
that's what I'm saying. So you just have to decide, are you giving a 6 month permit? Because that's what the city allows at this point. That's where I think we're at. You can yin yang this until,
But then in 6
10.
months, we just,
at 6 months.
you
then
get
that
6
would
months.
Come back again.
Disconnect or figure out another way in 6 months. You got 6 months to figure out another way.
Nothing going to change in 6 months. They're not building something
You
else,
disconnect
Grandma,
in 6 months.
I guess, or
Take out the
mother.
sewer.
In 6 months, it would be approve another one of these if the request was made, or disconnect that no one would be living in it. So it goes back into code enforcement again.
Right.
So then, if there's no more questions, I'm gonna call for a motion. Unless y'all have something else you wanna.
Sorry, there was one thing I'm sorry, I don't want to muddy the waters. But I think we had through Google Earth imagery had been able to pinpoint that the RV had been in that location since December 2020. I don't know, I cannot speak to if it was in the same situation as you see in the photographs from code enforcement's initial time there in February. I guess the owners could provide some clarification on that, but the aerial imagery caught with Google Earth showed it in 2020 of December.
Are you able to verify that it was hooked up in 2020?
I cannot.
Okay.
I guess it's not a illegal or out of the city code to have a this recreation vehicle or RV in the property. Yeah, you can purport
You
it.
can store it, it's not against,
But again, let's just say cannot prove it, so there's no violation in here.
So it isn't about what happened before. Not,
I just wanted to make a point of clarification,
Yeah.
but no, that we do not have any evidence that it was being lived in at that point, just that it was on site.
yeah. So I think we're at a spot where we you either want this. Don't you look at me. Yes. I'm looking for a motion. If you all don't have any other questions, or if you have anything to add. Alrighty then.
Make a motion to approve?
Makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Hold a second.
All those in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. All those not in favor, raise your hand. So.
This is an attorney question.
It's not. 3-2. So either way, it fails. Okay. So we're going to move on to B, consideration and possible action to direct staff to provide applicants written statements of the conditions for any conditional approvals and for the reasons for disapproval of any plans or plats that were not approved, per Texas Local Government Code 2120091. Do I have a motion? Because we all know what this is, right? Oh, we don't even need this because you don't have any.
Yeah, we don't need it.
Bing, then I only need one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll do that. Motion to adjourn.
You're the second?
Yeah, I'll say second.
All those in favor? Bing, here we go.
Who did first anyway?
And thank you so much.
That's fast.